morning. Good morning so much, and welcome to the third annual State of Memphis Housing Summit, the Roadmap to Revitalization. I am Ashley Cash, Director of Housing and Community Development for the City of Memphis. And we are so happy that y'all are spending your morning and your day with us, learning, listening, and conversing around the state of housing issues, both in the city and nationally. We have a wonderful and exciting day today, bookended by a mayor's roundtable with our own Mayor Strickland and the mayors from Little Rock and Jackson, Mississippi. We'll end the day off with a talk about how do we make the most of the momentum. So, how do we take all of this positive energy and resources that the city has and really transform our community, support citizens, and that conversation will be with Dr. Prentice Densler and Lourdes Germain. And so, with that, I would love to turn it over to our own Mayor Strickland to say a couple of words, just to once again welcome us and talk a little bit about housing. Mayor Strickland.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Ashley. I just want to welcome everyone. In most challenges we face in city government, it involves multiple partners, and quality affordable housing is one of those issues where city government, we don't have the resources available to do it on our own. So we need the help of so many different partners, and we have them in Memphis. So we can also learn from other cities, and because they're facing the same challenges we have. So this day today will be a great time to talk, to share best practices, and improve the outcomes for our citizens. So thank you for joining us.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And with that, we'll kick it off. We'll kick the morning off with first our mayor's roundtable. So I know several of us are thinking at a practitioner level, even at a city leader and resident level. What do we do? How will the city responded to the pandemic? Well, we have our own mayor and two other mayors from Little Rock, from Jackson, Mississippi, to really talk about that. To open and moderate that discussion, we've got Chief of Communications Officer and Intergovernmental Affairs, Ms. Ursula Madden. Ursula Madden began working for City Hall in January of 2016 as a part of Mayor Strickland's administration. Prior to working for the city, she was an Emmy Award-winning journalist and main co-anchor for WMC TV Action 5. She was part of Channel 5 broadcasting team for 17 years. Ms. Madden has been committed to serving the Memphis community, and she's on the board of trustees for St. Mary's Episcopal School for Girls, United Way for Mid, and United Way for Mid-South. She's also a contributor for the Women's Foundation of Greater Memphis. Ms. Madden is a member of Shelby County Links. She's blessed to have over 20 years of experience, of marriage experience to your wonderful husband, Bill, and y'all got a beautiful daughter, Laurel. We are so excited to have you here, Ms. Madden, and with that, you can take the conversation away today.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ashley. I appreciate all the kind words, and I want to, again, welcome everyone to the State of Memphis Housing Summit 2021. It has been a tumultuous couple of years, a little bit more than 18 months of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, we have our Honorable Mayor Jim Strickland of Memphis here to lead today's roundtable with the mayors of Little Rock and Jackson, Mississippi. The Honorable Frank Scott Jr., who is the mayor of Little Rock, our neighbors to the west, is here with us today, and also the Honorable Chokwe Lumumba, who is the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. So we really appreciate all those folks who are joining us today for the conversation about the state of housing and just what is going on in your city. So let's get right into it. Our first question that we're going to have today, I'm going to have Mayor Strickland start off with this. Can you tell us, Mayor, how has your administration approached affordability and stability here in the city of Memphis during the pandemic? It's been quite the challenge.
It's a challenge I never envisioned in my life that we would have to face in Memphis. I'd heard of the pandemic in 1919, but had never really studied it, and it was it's been such a challenging year and a half for all of us, including at city government. But particularly, it's been even tougher for our citizens who are most vulnerable, and those who are without a house or struggle from going from house to house. So it's kind of like I said in the opening statement. We worked as a team. We brought Shelby County in. We brought the University of Memphis in, and neighborhood preservation to help us in the legal system. Remember, there was no eviction moratorium when this first started. So let me start with those who do not have a house. We also had to consult doctors because there was a thought process that if people were living outside, don't break them up because of the pandemic. And so we had to work very carefully. We rented hotel rooms for many of the homeless and had to provide security at those hotels. So it actually took cooperation from them. Last summer, we also in summer of 2020, we used CARES Act funding to have a rental relief program, not nearly as big as this year's program, but to help people make ends meet. This summer, obviously, we have a bigger program because we got more federal money. And this is a joint program between the city and county. And we've helped over 7,000 residents in Memphis and Shelby County stay in their homes. I mentioned earlier that we had a partnership with the University of Memphis and Neighborhood Preservation Inc., where lawyers volunteered to go into court and defend people who were trying to be evicted. We also, this year, allocated money for an affordable housing trust fund, which helps homeowners stay in their homes. We've also, this year, we didn't have one last year, but we have a mortgage assistance program this year. It's something we wanted to do last year, but we didn't have the funds. We were only helping renters and help them pay their mortgage and stay in their homes. This year's funding from the federal government also helped us provide utility assistance along with the rental relief. But all this has been done in cooperation with our partners. The end result is trying to stabilize housing and with respect to those who do not have housing, improve their situation. It's not because of the pandemic, but during the same time, we had a partnership with the Church of God in Christ and renovated a former hospital into family for those experiencing homelessness, families who needed shelter. Also, we had a particular need for those who do not have housing, who go to the hospital, but are released from the hospital, but need some place to rehabilitate. So this former hospital was a perfect location for that. We're also building, we have a shortage of temporary housing for women. And we're in the midst of building a shelter for women. And that's, again, in partnership with Hospitality Hub and the county. So doing all these steps, it's just been such a tough time. And if you think you've had a tough time, think of those who have to struggle for housing. They've even had a tougher time. So the pandemic's not over. We're trying to get people vaccinated. We had a particular program to help people who are homeless get vaccinated. And I think I'm getting the hook now. So I'll go back to Ursula.
No, Mayor, you're not getting the hook quite yet. Just want to elaborate a little bit more. When we talk about housing, I know that the 7,000 residents that we've been able to help stay in their homes and create some stability for them, it also included utility assistance. and for those folks as well. So it wasn't just their rent, it was also their utilities so that they can keep the lights on. Can you talk a little bit about the Joint Task Force? Because part of surviving the pandemic citywide has been having the Memphis and Shelby County Joint Task Force, COVID-19 Task Force, so that we could actually pinpoint the needs of citizens.
Absolutely, and that's for everyone in our community. I'll never forget March of 2020. I drove with my father and my son to Dallas, Texas, to see the University of Memphis play in the conference basketball tournament. And if you'll recall, that's when everything broke loose. They at first said no fans at the tournament. The next day they canceled the tournament. The NBA went through their issues, and I drove down to Dallas on one day, drove back the next. And that when I was driving back, I stayed on the phone the whole time with city staffers, including you, and trying to figure out what our response would be. So we started every day, every morning, to meet as a city team. We grew that to the county government, to the hospitals, to the nonprofits, to what we currently have, which is a joint task force that Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris and I co-chair. And it involves schools, just every entity that we have in Memphis, to coordinate our response to this pandemic in every regard, from the health department mandates to vaccines to feeding those who don't have the resources, educating those who had to learn from home, and really pulling in the entire community to address this pandemic, a situation that none of us have ever faced. We came up with COVID testing programs that were used in the schools, where at really low to no cost, children in schools could be tested every week or two through a process called pooling, which is where you put multiple multiple swabs in one machine to test, and it makes it cheaper to do. That was in cooperation with Dr. Manoj Jain and our labs here in town. So we were trying to keep people safe, keep our economy moving, but number one, keep people safe. So the task force has been, and we continue to meet. And one last thing, as you know, we once or twice a week we have a press conference from the task force points of view, to communicate to the public on how best to stay safe from this pandemic.
Well, Mayor, I appreciate that breakdown of the Joint Task Force. It's been so important just regionally to this area to coordinate a response, not only to vaccination and testing, but also to housing. So very good points that you were bringing up there. I'd like to introduce into the conversation the Honorable Chokwe Lumumba, who is the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. He is the 53rd mayor of the city of Jackson, Mississippi, our neighbors to the south. He was only 34 years old when he became mayor in 2017. He's an attorney, a husband, a father, the son of two lifelong community activists. And Mayor Chokwe Lumumba, I'd like to welcome you to the State of Housing in the City of Memphis for 2021. And Mayor, can you just talk about how it's been in your city responding to the pandemic and making sure that the citizens of Jackson have stable housing and are able to stay in their homes? What challenges have you met?
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to express my gratitude for the invitation to be a part of this program. Want to provide greeting to Mayor Strickland and commend him on his hard work in the midst of this pandemic. And we refer to Memphis affectionately as North Mississippi, as it is interconnected with our state. Many of the issues we've been facing in Jackson, Mississippi are similar to what Mayor Strickland spoke of. We are traditionally under-resourced to deal with many of the challenges that we see in the housing sector, especially amongst those that are unhoused. We have been a part of similar initiatives, not only with rental assistance programs, providing hotels to individuals who are unhoused in the midst of this pandemic. We, are making certain and have made certain that we had sufficient tests to support people in the midst of this pandemic. But we've also been a part of programs such as a program we started with an organization called StuPot, which has programming on a continuous basis for the unhoused in our city. We were able to provide rapid rehousing and outreach programs for them. And we also work with an organization called New Way, Mississippi, which was focused on rehousing the formerly incarcerated. For us, I believe that the pandemic has not come in order to discriminate against one community or another. It has not created issues. It has merely exposed pre-existing issues. There isn't enough stability in housing security within our cities. And I believe that it has emphasized a need to shift our focus on the metrics of success of our economies. Often when we think in a national sense, we look at markers like our stock market, or, when we look at our cities, we look at whether we're able to build, new buildings and what is the state of economic development in our city. I believe that we have to start to shift our focus to sustainable development goals. What is the access to quality housing? What is the equity within things like our education system and the exposure of or the access to healthcare amongst our residents? One thing, and this isn't necessarily associated with the state of housing, but it is consistent with our aim to shift our focus to the sustainable development goals. We not only thought it was important to invest in these programs we're speaking of, but we also turned to our own city employees. With tight budget constraints, we made the decision to cover 100% of the health insurance premiums of all of our city employees, not only as a means of providing health care, but also realizing that as everyone's budget has been strapped, as everyone has been dealing with the challenges of this pandemic, we knew that it would increase the take-home pay of our city employees. And we're encouraging other businesses to do the same. And so what we understand is that in the midst of this pandemic, we've been fixing the bike while we've been riding it. And we've been learning our way through this challenge. And so what we should take from this moment isn't the fact that a nasty pandemic has fallen upon us in order to discriminate against any sector of our community, but it has merely exposed our vulnerabilities that have always existed.
Can you talk a little bit about the challenges of having vulnerabilities exposed in a political environment? It is challenging during regular times without a pandemic to be able to focus on building up communities and helping people through the challenges that they face. But do politics play a role in that, and does it convolute things?
Well, absolutely. I think there are a number of things that I would say. It is unfortunate that we've allowed politics to play as significant of a role in things as kind of straightforward as healthcare advice. I am a recovering attorney, so you wouldn't want me to give you any advice from my own personal assessment as to what is in your best interest with regard to your body. And so, like Mayor Strickland, one of the first things that I did was to create a COVID task force, a task force made up of not only doctors, people who are a part of Jackson State's public healthcare or public healthcare school of public healthcare, and people who have vested interest in our economy as well, because we are trying to stand up an economy in the midst of COVID-19. But it was necessary that I had the expertise at the table to inform us of what exactly we were looking at, what are our greatest vulnerabilities as a city, and how we move forward. In addition, I think that this has also been a moment that is truly exposed that we live in a world of abundance, but operate from a place of scarcity. As we've been talking about how we better support families, as we have talked about how we better support parents, this has been, a discussion that has gone on the national level for many years. And the suggestion has been that there just aren't the resources available to support people in this way. Well, lo and behold, a pandemic arrives and we see that it is necessary. And we find that it's less about our ability or the resources available to support people and more about a lack of political will to do so. And so, I think that while we have seen several great organizers through the course of history, from Martin Luther King to, Medgar Evers in Jackson, Mississippi, the greatest organizer of all time, in my opinion, is oppression or conditions which people are subjugated by. And so we should take this as a moment to organize, as a moment to build policies, as a moment to emphasize the need for resources within communities.
And leadership is doing that. I can see that in Jackson, Mississippi, here in Memphis as well, and also in Little Rock, Arkansas, our neighbors to the west of us, where the Honorable Frank Scott Jr. is mayor. Mayor Scott is the city's 73rd mayor, first elected Black chief executive in that city. So history-making effort there. Since the day that he was elected, Mayor Scott has worked to unite diverse neighborhoods into the city, into one people, cooperating to expand the economy there, to improve their quality of life. And he brings a unique combination of skills to that position. I would like to welcome Mayor Scott to the conversation. And Mayor, can you just first talk about the challenges that you've been seeing in Little Rock, Arkansas, when it comes to keeping people in their homes during this pandemic?
Thank you so much. It's truly been a trying time since March 11, 2020, when we all experienced the COVID-19 global pandemic, and we're still experiencing it now, as we are all hoping and praying that we're on our way out of it. When you think about many of our residents that were forced inward and or did not have the adequate access to remain home or to keep their rental payments together because of a job shortage or unemployment or many different things of life's necessities. And so it's paramount. One of the things that we've learned throughout the pandemic was not only the healthcare disparities, but financial disparities within all of our communities, particularly our most vulnerable communities. And the main need why we have to continue to focus on affordable housing and what I call equitable economics. And so when we think about affordable housing, one of the things I want to commend both the federal administration as it relates to the U.S. Department of HUD, where our City of Little Rock Housing Neighborhood Programs has done a really good job in leveraging our home funds as well as our CDBG to ensure that we do all that we can to provide resources for these residents who, at the point in time, probably couldn't pay their rental payment, let alone pay their light bill, the water bill, things of that nature. So we had to get very creative. And that's one of the things that Mayor Lumumba and I definitely know. One of the things we've learned about being a mayor during a pandemic is being creative. As we focus on our home funds and CDBG, what we've utilized for rental payments, but also to ensure that we create regional collaboration with our county that we get the most bang for our buck from that particular standpoint. But also what we've been doing is utilizing both our home funds, our HUD funds, and CDBG to develop our own affordable housing communities within the city of Little Rock to ensure that our most residents in most need have the ability to have a place, to have a home. One of the things that I always share is that, homes keep a city alive. And so that's the reason why we as mayors and we as leaders want to figure out all that we can do to have affordable housing, to close the wealth gaps within our cities, to build better communities.
Well, I appreciate that explanation and sentiment about how you guys are working in Little Rock. Let me just ask something of all three mayors very quickly, and starting, Mayor Scott, with you. With the CARES money that was allocated to your city and also the ARPA funds that were given to your city, have you had trouble with distribution. I know there's been a lot of talk with media over the last couple of months about how the money is there, but it's hard to get it to the citizens who need it. Have you seen that issue in your city, doing that distribution and getting people to take the ARPA money or the CARES money who are landlords and getting that money to the tenants who need it?
Yes, I would say particularly from both the CARES and the ARPA, we've experienced that, when the federal government has shared that they're going to deposit their funds, they deposit on the same day that they say they're going to. And so we've already dispersed or began the process of allocating the the city of Little Rock received $38 million for our American Rescue Plan Act funds. And so we received the first tranche of that a few months ago. We've already allocated that 18 million, and part of that 18 million, of course, there's a number of different needs that are identified for proper usage and compliance for that. We do have funds available for affordable housing that we're doing, as I shared earlier, other affordable housing projects within the city, as well as creating a homeless village. And so we're both focusing on the affordable housing, but creating a homeless village that serves as a transitional place to then direct and transition our homeless brothers and sisters to the affordable housing communities that we're also working on within American Rescue Plan Act. And so it's been very beneficial to us as a city that we've had these extra funds, both from CARES as well as from the American Rescue Plan Act. And from a CARES standpoint, the city of Little Rock has partnered with the Placid County. As many people may not know, Little Rock is the largest city in a very small state. We're 202,591 residents as of our new census, and we're very grateful for our 10% increase over the last 10 years. And so because of certain things that have happened in the CARES Act, we had to partner with our county and had to partner with our state because the state received most of those funds. And so we had to have some significant relationships to ensure that those dollars are getting to our residents, because we did not receive direct dollars from the CARES Act fund. But due to the lobbying of many mayors, Mayor Strickland, myself, and Mayor Lumumba, we lobbied for cities to have more direct fundings, particularly cities who didn't reach that threshold of 500,000. Now, clearly, Mayor Strickland, he received his because the city of Memphis is larger than both Jackson and Little Rock, whereas Mayor Lumumba and I, we had to work with our governor to receive our funds. But through that lobbying with Mayor Strickland and many other mayors and Mayor Lumumba, when we transitioned to American Rescue Plan Act, we now receive those direct dollars. And so that's just a great example of making fixes after we have an experience with one set of funding to the next set of funding.
A direct deposit into your city coffers. Mayor Lumumba, did you have that same challenge? Are you having a challenge with distribution for rental assistance?
Well, we certainly. I'll take your former question first, and we were grateful that we were able to receive direct deposit on the ARP funds. And what Mayor Scott speaks of is an issue that we've been lifting up for some time. I remember meeting in Atlanta, Georgia, with then candidate Joe Biden for the presidency, and this was an issue that we underscored that often the conduit of using the state to get the resources to cities leaves something to be desired. And so, it is cities where the rubber meets the road. And so it is critical to us that we have those resources to truly effectuate the necessary help that our residents are in need of. In terms of the rental assistance program, we have not only seen that challenge, and I know that that's a challenge that I'm certain that Mayor Strickland and Mayor Scott are experiencing in their cities. But we have tried to, organize around. We've worked with Mississippi Home Corp to have rental assistance fairs where we have brought residents in to the state fairgrounds and walk them from, different tables and express to them what the opportunities are and the money that is available. Simultaneous to the issue of suffering in the midst of this pandemic, unfortunately, the city of Jackson has had significant challenges with its water billing revenue, where bills have been stranded. It's led to, the accumulation of the bills or the amount owed by residents. And so this was not only helpful in terms of a resource to the residents, knowing that renters have the opportunity to get assistance not only on their rent, but on their utilities, such as water. And so we played an integral role in working with the state to help make residents aware of that. This is not an unusual circumstance. Typically, it is the communities that are the most unresourced that not only need the funds to support them better, but they also are typically not engaged in the process sufficiently enough to know what is available to them. And so it just means that our points of contact, our ability to communicate and our outreach has to be ongoing. It has to be persistent. I tell people 3 minutes on a microphone at a city council meeting does not equal community participation. And so this is another area that we can identify as a necessary point of engagement, of correction, as we prayerfully come out of this pandemic.
Bring up a very good point about community engagement. And Mayor Strickland, the same question to you, the challenge of actually distributing the funds and getting them out to the people who need them. And is community engagement a challenge when you're trying to reach people who may not be plugged into the civic process, but desperately need the help?
Communication is a problem during a pandemic or even outside a pandemic. Getting information out to the public is very difficult. And for those who are disconnected, it's even harder. But we have partners who, for instance, who deal on a daily basis with the homeless community that we can work through them to get the word out. But I want to follow up on what the mayor said. City governments are the best at getting money out on the street of any level of government. We're smaller than state governments and federal governments. We're more nimble. And we also see the need for it on a daily basis. So there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves to hold ourselves accountable. The CARES Act, which was in 2020, our city council worked with us and approved the funds very quickly. We had partners who did small business. We used that money to help small businesses. A nonprofit here in town worked to administer that program. Same thing with nonprofits who were struggling with lost revenue. So we got that money out on the street, and I'm proud to say that all the CARES Act money has been spent. The American Rescue Plan, we've worked with the council. They've just recently approved that. Some of the money is already out there, but over the next couple of months, we're going to be administering those programs to help the community. And then the rental assistance came in addition to that. And together, city and county, we've gotten over $50 million. You see a lot of stories for bigger states like California who've had a really tough time getting that money out. I'm proud in Memphis and Shelby County, we've probably easily gotten over 50% of that money out. I said we've helped 7,000 citizens because it's really important. And one factor here, we've also worked with landlords because they're a key to this, especially landlords who have multiple tenants who are behind in rent, because they have an incentive in this program too, because they want their rental money. And I talked earlier about the lawyers who volunteered their time. Some of these lawyers have actually worked out deals with the landlords to take a little bit less. Therefore, we're allowed to stretch our money, that $50 million I told you about that we've gotten from federal government, stretch it even more to help more people. Again, it's partners left and right who've stretched those dollars out and got them out to help the people in need.
Mayor Strickland, I'm going to stay with you for a little bit. Can you talk about the rising cost of rent and how that's impacting people being able to get into a stable situation, especially if they are maybe not high wage earners?
you know, cities like growth, and we like people moving into the city. And the more demand there is for housing, the higher the cost goes. But that creates a challenge on the back end for low income individuals, which is where government has to step in and provide, make sure that we have quality, affordable housing. And I always emphasize quality because in Memphis, we have plenty of affordable housing, but a lot of it's not quality at all. It needs a lot of work. So you have to do a lot of things. One of them is we have a whole incentive program through city government working on basically tax freezes if you provide quality affordable housing. In the last 6 years, we've incentivized the construction or renovation of over 10,000 affordable housing units, and again, it has to be quality. We want Memphis to be a city where everyone can live, no matter how much they make. A lot of cities you see around the country, their growth has taken over so much that poor residents and even middle income residents are forced out because they can't afford to be there. We don't want that. And we've taken specific actions. I'll give you an example. Downtown Memphis is booming and doing really well. People with means are moving here. But what we've done is we've created several programs like South City, which is a partnership with us and the federal government, a $60 million capital investment. The city was in for $30 million, building quality, affordable housing right in the downtown area, so that it's not just it's for a city downtown for everyone. Downtown is everyone's neighborhood, and that means everyone should be able to afford to live there. We've also, some of the 10,000 units we've incentivized are in or near downtown, and I'm proud of that work where we have rich and poor alike who can share a neighborhood.
And thank you, Mayor, for that explanation. Very enlightening to try and help people to stay in their communities and not be priced out of their communities. Is that a challenge that you are seeing in Jackson, Mississippi, Mayor Lumumba?
Well, the challenge of having sufficient affordable housing is certainly one that we have. And it kind of returns to an earlier point that I made. Whether or not we're talking about standing up housing in the middle of a pandemic, or we're talking about the challenge of affordable housing being available to the residents in your city. These are issues that deal with cycles of humiliation that our communities face, cycles that allow for substandard housing, that allow for failing infrastructure, that allow for a lack of prevalence or pervasive lack of sufficient health care, lack of access to fresh fruits and vegetables within communities, and communities where we see food deserts and food swamps. And so I believe that we have to now shift to what we have coined as a dignity economy, an economy which reflects the inherent dignity of every resident in our city. Instead of pricing people out of communities, instead of seeing models of gentrification, instead of moving people away, we want to lift people up. And I think that has to be, kind of our metric of success. The city of Jackson and the city I love is more than just a matter of latitude and longitude and where it exists. It is the souls that reside in the city. It is how we are affecting their quality of life. It is how we are supporting them. That is the measure of impact that we really think makes the difference. And so, yes, while Jackson is not growing at the rate, and those are challenges and other issues that we have to confront, that maybe Little Rock and Memphis is growing. These are still issues that lead to the decline, that are so prevalent that our ability to correct them, invites and embraces people to not only join the city, but also make certain that they're getting the best out of their experience while they're here.
So Memphis is not growing according to the last census. We lost a little bit of our population, which is similar to what's happening to you all in Jackson. I wonder if Little Rock has a different perspective on the question of gentrification and keeping people in their neighborhoods, considering that they're having some growth. Mayor Scott, what do you think about that?
Yes. One of the things is we definitely are grateful for the growth that Little Rock has experienced. I do want to share that we have, for a couple decades, have remained around the 185, 190 range. Last 10 years, we've continued to increase. And so what we've seen, one, again, Little Rock being the most populous, the most urban city in a small state, it yields a desire from other areas of our state that may be more rural or also located in the Delta. So we're grateful for the growth. I definitely am happy about it. But one of the things that we have to always guard against when we have this type of growth is that we do not fall prey to gentrification. And so one of the things that we've seen, because there's, we, as Mayor Strickland shared earlier, Little Rock has, in comparison, to other cities within the state of Arkansas, our housing price range is higher. And so in many cases, Little Rock probably should be somewhere around 250 to 300,000. As it relates to our population. But we've seen many people decide to leave Little Rock, even though we've been growing, because of housing cost. And really, that's been geared towards more of the middle class and up. But as it relates to our most low income residents, there is sufficient affordable housing. But as Mayor Strickland shared, it's more than just having affordable housing. It's ensuring that it is sufficient affordable housing, that is quality affordable housing, that we are taking care of our most at-risk residents, and to ensure that what they have is no different than any other community within the city of Little Rock from a certain standpoint. And so we know that, and so we guard against that. And so we, like Mayor Lumumba, we've been guarding against that type of gentrification and focusing a lot on mixed use and ensuring that affordable housing and any other developments has the residents in mind. But then secondly, too, we've been very intentional in our administration. Again, as we focus on, Mayor Lumumba talks about a dignity economy. We focus on what we call equitable economics. And what that means is that we have to be very intentional about how we develop in our city, because literally you can draw a map. I'm born and raised and still reside in Southwest Little Rock, which is the most impoverished area of our city. And literally you can draw a map. And our city is divided by an interstate called Interstate 630. And so what we've done is really focused a lot on creating economic incentives for south of 630 and east of I-30 to create more development, but also focus on more quality of affordable housing and doing all that we can to help transition our homeless brothers and sisters into the working society. And so with this kind of three-pronged approach, we believe that guards against gentrification and the pushing out of residents, and being someone from Southwest Little Rock, and we understand the history of not only I-630 and what it did to redline communities back in the 60s, and quite frankly, redline Black people. And we understand those issues. That's the reason why we've been focused on equitable economics, but also we've seen eminent domain really push out low-income residents, where we had a number of different residents that lived in the East End or the East Side that, due to the expansion of the airport when I was a young kid, that they were pushed out as well. And so we want to guard against that. And so we have to have intentional policies and ensure that many cities have to focus on master planning. Our city, the reason why we have the I-630 issue, not only because of the racism and the redlining, is because the city forefathers and mothers did not have an adequate master plan for how they wanted the city to build. And so while we're 202,000, we're also 124 square miles. We're a pretty large city from a geographic standpoint. And so we have to have a master plan in mind that keeps the people in mind and ensuring that there's affordability at the forefront.
Well, all of you have mentioned the quality of life and how economics plays into that. And I'm wondering if there are one or two specific programs within your community, in your cities, that have helped you guide people toward that quality of life that we're all trying to achieve, not only just in their neighborhoods, but also, in their pocketbooks at home, on their jobs, where it all counts. Mayor Scott, let's just start with you. You talked about how important planning and development is. How does that all play into making sure that people do have a quality of life that is sustainable and keeps them feeling good about where they live, but also contributes to this ability to create stability and growth in your communities? What programs do you have?
Sure. I think one set the stage is that for Little Rock to truly reach its true potential, we both have to increase our educational achievement as well as diversity in the marketplace. And so, as I shared earlier, ways we've been intentional is by creating our south of 630, east of I-30 economic incentives. Those are the most impoverished areas of our city as it relates to economic development and jobs growth and overall quality of life. And so we've been pushing development in those areas. And so I'm proud that after a year of having these economic incentives, if we look back over the past year, 55% of our new development happened in south of 630, east of I-30, 55%. And that's mainly because we issued economic incentives to get people to start thinking about these areas and understand that there's it's affordable areas. B, you can bring jobs here and headquarters here, and there's a quality workforce that doesn't have to travel to other areas of the city that you can have right here. So that's number one. Number two, when we came into office, our local school district was under state control. We were very critical in getting the pathway for our local school district to be back under local control. And so we did that by focusing on what we call a community schools model with our chief education officer that provides wraparound services for our most at-risk students at our most at-risk schools. And so that's been going on for about a year and a half. And we've now increased our community schools from 4 to 8, and we're hoping to go to the middle school, and we'll continue to see great educational achievement for our children there. And then finally is continue to focus on affordable housing and homelessness with our new homeless village that we're going to be able to fund with the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, but also how we leverage our HUD funds, our home funds, and our CDBG, not only for affordable housing, but also how we help out our entrepreneurs. And so we've been very deliberate on creating more small business owners, particularly Black, Brown, and women. And so we've created not only our Build Academy, which stands for Businesses United in Leadership Development, which focuses on these aspiring entrepreneurs and existing entrepreneurs to ensure that they have everything that they need, not only to access capital, but focus on how we can help organizations that are underbanked become bankable, helping them to understand financial literacy, understand financial excellence and operational excellence and human resources, and the need to have a lawyer, the need to have an accountant to really position themselves to receive not only become bankable, but in that early stage funding from venture capital as well. So through our Build Academy, which is a 6-week cohort that we are teaching these aspiring and existing entrepreneurs so they can now not only receive contracts from our city, but also to increase supplier diversity, our talent development, and overall understanding from that standpoint. So again, we have to be intentional. And then finally, we've been focusing a lot on how we increase diversity, equity, inclusion within our existing workforce and the economy. And so those are many different things that we've been working on.
Intentionality is so important. Mayor Lumumba, what programs do you have in Jackson that you feel are driving the quality of life, increasing the quality of life for your citizens?
Well, there are a number of things that I would point to. First and foremost, let me steal an opportunity to express how proud I am of both of my colleagues. I've known Mayor Scott for quite some time. In fact, he stole my title of being one of the youngest mayors of a city over 100,000. I'm a little bitter about that, but we're good friends nonetheless. And I am certainly familiar with Mayor Strickland, so I'm proud of the work that he's doing as well. There are a few things that I would point to. One, we're very proud to have a guaranteed income pilot in our city. We recognize that poverty is the worst form of violence that any community could suffer from. And we see the associated effects of poverty, which are pervasive through our communities. We also, stand up what we call a people's assembly, And that is very essential to the quality of life in our city. Our people's assemblies are quarterly across the city, where we come and we convene on issues that are facing our city. It's not only an opportunity for our residents to become familiar with the actions that the city government is taking, but it's also an opportunity for an information exchange where they can share with us what's taking on a grassroots level. Out of that, we've also begun a participatory budgeting process. One of the essential and most important functions we have as city officials is the control of a budget. It is my opinion that a budget is a moral document which should reflect the values of our community. And so that being the case, community should have some input and some say-so as it relates to how city dollars are spent, making certain that we're no longer scratching where people may not be itching. We are also proud to have a business development program and a partnership that we've reached with Hope Community Credit Union, which is based here in Jackson, Mississippi, but also Goldman Sachs to help support entrepreneurs. We believe and are, unashamed and unapologetic of our statement of supporting Black businesses in the city of Jackson. My analogy is if 85% of your population is left-handed, you need some left-handed jobs. But we also have to make certain that we stand up other business supports where we have voids in our community. We're now sponsoring and trying to support the formation of cooperative businesses, not as a substitute for the private enterprise that takes place, but as a means to leverage other investment within our community. Jackson is a city that does not have a problem producing wealth. Often our city has a problem maintaining wealth. And so our greatest exports often are our talent and our money. And so we want to build businesses which part of its premise or its formation is the service of its community. And it would only leave if the community thought that it was of value to the community. And so these are some of the programs, just a few of the programs that we have been a part of. When you ask such a question like that, it gives us an opportunity to kind of go around the spectrum of things that are really important to the work that we're doing for our cities.
Well, Mayor, that was certainly the idea, and I'm enjoying the friendly rivalry between you and Mayor Scott, and I'm glad that Mayor Strickland gets to join in on this friendship. Mayor Strickland, can you talk about some of the programs that you have initiated that you feel are contributing to the quality of life for the residents of Memphis?
Sure. It's a little similar to what the other mayors have talked about, but I'm going to highlight two things. First, growing minority-owned and women-owned businesses. And secondly, comprehensive planning and investing in neighborhoods who haven't seen a lot of investment. First, 30 years ago, I was at a Kiwanis meeting, and anyone in Memphis watching knows who Fred Davis was. Fred was a leader in trying to grow Black-owned businesses. 30 years ago at a Kiwanis meeting, he said, Jim, if you took all the business transacted in Memphis, not by city government, but just us buying insurance, groceries, whatever it was, do you know how much is transacted with Black-owned business? And I said, no. 30 years ago, the answer was 1%. So 5.5 years ago, I get elected mayor. I meet with Fred again, and he said, do you remember that conversation? I said, yes, sir. He said, all right, well, now you can do something about it. He goes, also, I want to tell you, over those intervening 25 years, do you know what the number is? And remember, Memphis is 65% African-American, 65%. He said, still, the number is 1%. That is not fair, certainly not equitable, and it's also not sustainable for the city. It's holding us back. So we have a three-pronged attack. Number one, city government has to do more in its contracting for goods and services with Black-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. Number two, we have to get the private sector to do more because government alone doesn't spend enough money to really move the needle very much. And number three, to diversify the businesses owned by African Americans, other minorities, and women. And each one of it gets harder as you go down that route. City government, when I took office, about 12% of our contracts were with MWBEs. We're now almost 24%. and so almost doubled that percent. And the team that we have here has become really a national model on how to do that. Now we're not declaring mission accomplished. We still have room to grow, but we're going to work hard on it. Secondly, the chamber here has talked a lot about doing better in the business sector, but in the last year, they've really made some strides in holding their members accountable for publicly displaying what their numbers are and to move those numbers. And third, I'll give you an example of growing the diversity of businesses owned. We buy a lot of cars and vehicles, police cars, fire trucks, whatever. We don't have a locally owned African-American dealer that we can buy from. So we have to diversify the kinds of businesses, and I can't really say we've succeeded in that regard, but we have to keep working on it. Second, comprehensive planning. We hadn't had a comprehensive plan in Memphis in 45 years. We have Memphis 3.0. 15,000 Memphians took part in drafting it. Every neighborhood in the city, some of whom have never really had a comprehensive plan. What do they dream that their neighborhood will look like in 10, 15, 20 years? We've a lot of infrastructure needs in neighborhoods that have had no investment. We activated that with Memphis, Accelerate Memphis, which is $75 million into our parks and $75 million into the infrastructure in neighborhoods that have not seen the investment, sidewalks, lighting, bus stops, just enhancing an area to make it more enticing for businesses to really put money in. Because again, city government, that 75 million is not enough to change the tide alone. We have to have the private sector come in and invest, but we have to make the area more attractive. And let me add on one that we're planning to do: broadband. Broadband, that we learned in the pandemic that so many children live in houses that don't have quality internet access. About 20% of our city does not have access. The 80% that does have access, it's very average internet. Less than 10% have fiber to the premises. So our goals are to get fiber to the premises to every house and every business, and to make it affordable so that a lot of people can do it. We've allocated $22 million to start that process. That is a drop in the bucket for the whole cost, but you got to start somewhere. And I really do believe broadband internet is as important to the quality of life and creation of jobs in all these neighborhoods as was electricity, connecting homes and neighbors to electricity 100 years ago. That greatly increased our quality of life, and it increased creating jobs. And if we want to create jobs in neighborhoods that have been disinvested, city government's got to lead the way by improving the infrastructure, getting broadband in there, and leading the way to cause private folks to want to invest too.
I'm going to ask this of all three mayors too, but Mayor, can you start off by telling me, what do you think communities, neighborhoods can do, individual people can do to help support the city's efforts?
Well, number one, get vaccinated. The faster we get over this pandemic, the better. Approximately 54% of our city is vaccinated, and we just need more people to be vaccinated, because once we get this behind us, we can operate. It just improve everything. Secondly, and this is a little different than as I started thinking about this question, to know and to communicate what's going on. As you know, Ursula, Memphis has at least as of about 10 years ago, had the highest percent of our population to be opportunity youth. That is young people 16 to 24 who are not in school and don't have a job. We don't have the most because Chicago, New York are so much bigger. But as of 10 years ago, we had the highest percent of our population disconnected from any opportunity, schooling or jobs. But the ironic thing, Memphis is a city of opportunities. We have incredible opportunities. For the first time ever, this year, we have universal needs-based pre-K, and that's a partnership between the cities, Shelby County Schools, and Shelby County government. We have more after-school programming than we've ever had. We have a free adult high school. You could be 30 years old, didn't get your high school degree, you can go back to school. And they also have free daycare. We have free GED programming, free adult literacy programming. And Tennessee is one of the few states that we see this debated on the national stage about making community college free. It is free in Tennessee now. We have free community college and free technical school. You go get a technical degree at one of our free schools, you are guaranteed, almost guaranteed, a job that's making a really good wage. So we have all these opportunities, yet we have young people who are out of the system. And one of the things the public can do for us is to know of all these opportunities, because they know a young person that needs. Now, we're going to do more to connect with these opportunities too, but that's what we could use the citizens to help us.
Okay, very good. Mayor Lumumba, what would you ask of the citizens of Jackson? What could they do to help their city?
Well, first and foremost, I thank you for this question, because we fundamentally believe in the concept of collective genius, that we're a lot smarter together than we are independent of one another. And to steal a quote from Ella Baker, she said, "When you look deep into community, you find strength, not weakness." And so as we've been confronting the challenges of this pandemic in terms of how it has disproportionately affected certain communities, in terms of people who contract the virus, it is important that community are well informed, that we don't spread reductive messaging that puts people in fear and leaves people more vulnerable in the midst of this pandemic. But I've pointed to a number of things that I think that we pull on the expertise and the understanding of our residents from our people's assemblies, our participatory budgeting process. But we also recognize, as there has been a precipitous increase in violent crime across the nation, that community is closest to the solutions. It is community that understands the children that are at highest risk, that understand when behaviors are being exhibited. And we want to interrupt those cycles. And so we call on our community for quite a bit, honestly. But it is because we don't believe that we have a mayor or an administration that is intelligent or well-resourced enough to solve Jackson's problems on our own. It really, truly requires the engagement of our community. Our residents may or may not be experts in infrastructure, housing security, crime or economic development, but they are all experts in their conditions. They know what has made life difficult, and they know what they have enjoyed most out of life. And so they have something to say, and we have to be willing to hear.
Mayor Scott, what would you ask of the residents of Little Rock to better help your city?
Well, I think, one, we always want our residents to be engaged in the matters of the city. I share with my leadership team each and every day, we got 3 C's that we're focused on, and that's customer service, communications, and cementing change through execution. And so when we speak to the customer service, we have to realize that, our bosses are the people of Little Rock, and we have to be very attuned to their needs and figuring out ways to provide solutions to any issue. And so when I think through that is, one, we want to continue to increase our civic engagement efforts, where one example is that quarterly, my team and I literally City Hall does community walks to various neighborhoods where we literally convene town hall meetings on sidewalks. And we're able to answer questions and provide feedback, and then take those issues and be responsive to the community from that particular standpoint. But then secondly, I think another portion is as we're coming out of this pandemic, I think all of us mayors are focused on how do we rebuild. We still won't know for another decade the impact of COVID-19 on our cities. And so we are super focused on how do we rebuild Little Rock, and how do we focus on quality and life in place enhancements and amenities for our youth and young adults as we continue to grow as a city. How do we focus on infrastructure development, particularly in the area in targeted community areas? How do we address affordable housing, early childhood education from those standpoints? And so we're seeking to go after a robust and bold sales tax initiative that addresses those issues to truly rebuild the city. And so we plan to go after this again for our residents. And I think having this type of investment coupled with what we hope will happen here in the next few weeks in DC with the forthcoming infrastructure bill, we think those are going to be things that we need to support and need to get engaged on so we can have the resources to rebuild our cities.
I love that idea of a City Hall roadshow to go directly into communities and talk with folks, Mayor Scott. Gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up with final remarks. Mayor Scott, why don't we begin with you? Any parting thoughts?
I just want to say it's been indeed a pleasure to be with you and my fellow mayors today as we talk about affordable housing, something that's critical to quality and life in place, but also to economic development. We all stand together as cities of the South. We're all working to create a new South, and we create a new South by focusing on equity and being intentional about the equity developments and all that we do. And so, Mayor Strickland, as you know, while I'm born and raised, still reside in the city of Little Rock and a mayor of my hometown in Little Rock. I still bleed blue and gray. I'm a graduate of the University of Memphis, and so I'm happy to be with you. Memphis is my second home.
Tigers on the call this morning.
Go Tigers, go.
Mayor Lumumba, any parting thoughts this morning?
Yes. Again, I just want to express my gratitude for the invitation to be a part of this panel discussion. I have immense respect for both mayors who joined this panel, and I'd like to thank you again for navigating this discussion seamlessly. I just think that this is an important moment in history. It is a moment where our focus has been guided towards the challenges that exist within our communities, and so we should take out of this challenge the opportunity to embrace building more sustainable and more equitable resources and have more equitable policy that addresses the needs of people. Once again, moving away from the cycles of humiliation that people deal with into a dignity economy, one which reflects the inherent dignity that every single person deserves. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And Mayor Strickland, since you're the host, I'm going to give you the final thought.
Well, first of all, I'm so inspired by Mayor Lumumba and Mayor Scott, comforted in a way because we all have the same challenges, but inspired by what I heard them say. And I hope they don't get mad and don't sue me for copyright infringement. I may steal some of the stuff that they threw out and try to implement it here. It has been such a challenging year and a half. We will get through it just like in Jackson and Little Rock through partnerships. I also agree that we're not going to know the full impact on this for a while, but what we can do is the best we can, keep our foot to the pedal and pushing our cities to a higher quality of life and better customer service. So I'm just honored to be on this panel with them.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for your comments. And of course, they won't mind if we steal some things because imitation is the best form of flattery. So hopefully everyone can take away some ideas today to help improve the quality of life for their citizens, because that's really, truly what it is all about.